Hello, people of the internet. So today, as I'm procrastinating from doing anything that I should be, the thought came to me about stage zero modifications, and and their importance, and why they should be treated less as an afterthought and more as a really important step in having a project car. So, you know, hypothetical, you just went out, you got some project. I don't care. Let's keep it to like running drivable projects. It doesn't have to be your only, but there it is. And you have opened up the purchasing selection of choice. You have your hot air intake ready to hit buy it now, and you have a fresh pack of Sawzall blades so that you can get your 80 horsepower unlocked from home performance exhaust. Take a step back and breathe. Now, stage zero is regularly talked about, definitely. And all that means is to, like in a nutshell, in the smallest basic form, is to go and check over everything on your vehicle and make sure that it is functioning properly as it should. But I don't really think, usually you see it come up with stage zero stuff. Somebody asks a question, whatever your group communication of choice is, somebody asks a question. Hey, I just picked up car A and it's having problem X. What do I need to do? Or, hey, I just picked up project car A and here is my list of hopes and dreams. Where do I start? Something along those lines is generally where you're going to find this. And somebody's always going to reply, stage zero. Did you do stage zero? Why don't you try stage zero? Have you checked your stage zero? And I've been on the internet for a very long time, and stage zero means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So, with stage zero, what I think you need to do, you need to address a fluid change. I do not care what the previous owner said. I don't care that you knew him or her or whatever. Do fluids. All fluids and filters that you can reasonably do. I get it, some stuff isn't as serviceable as others, but all fluids and filters you can reasonably do. You need to do a full mechanical walk around. Take it for a drive. Does it have clunks, bumps, noises? And I get it. We're probably all looking at 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old vehicles. They're going to be old. They're going to have wear and tear. But you don't want, those 30-year-old rubber bushings, while maybe aren't falling apart, you may not want to put it on a track and send it. Okay? That could be the best way to find your weakest link, and that's not necessarily the manner you want to find it. So, full mechanical walk around. You want to visually and to the best of your ability mechanically test everything. Again, take it for a drive. Odd noises, clunks, bumps. Do bounce tests for suspension components. You stand on the outside of the car or truck or whatever you have and you bounce it and check and see. You can do, pull the wheels. Do visual inspections. Yeah, the steering works. How worn out are those inner tie rods? You got a rack and pinion system. A lot of people don't change the inners. They just focus on the outers. Identify any major leaks. Is the power steering pump going to go out because you have a hose getting ready to fail? Brake system going to go out because you have a hose or a line getting ready to fail? You need to really look at those things and you need to address them and make sure that they are at as good to a 100% mechanically working, functional state as you can. Tune-ups, I always advocate tune-ups. I know in modern vehicles, especially later years OBD2. The first 2 years of OBD2, while it was an advancement, most of the engines running OBD2 were still basic old school engines just with fancy electronics on it. After about 2006, somewhere in that 2005 to 2010 range, that's really when OBD2 kicked up, and pretty much everything post 2020, I've always kind of said that we should be in a new generation of OBD. We're really close to having to be there, and we should be in that like OBD 2.5 like we used to have OBD 1.5. Anyway, but make sure things are good. Your lifetime stuff isn't lifetime. It is meant for the manufacturer's idea of a lifetime, which is the loan period. Yeah, that's just what it is. Depending on the class of vehicle, that could be a lease period. So just figure when a manufacturer says lifetime, they mean 3 to 7 years. That's a lifetime. So you need to go through, you need to check plugs, you need to check plug boots, wires if it has wires, coil packs. You can look for degradation, see if the epoxy sealant is starting to burn, flake, crack, bulge, melt, any of that kind of stuff. If you're old enough to be dealing with carbureted or even OBD1 throttle body injection, there are a few other things, but still, just go through everything. Address vacuum hoses. Man, vacuum hoses don't last forever either. Even the fancy neoprene ones, they don't last forever. Check vacuum hoses. Again, fluids and filters, to include fuel filter if you have a serviceable fuel filter. I absolutely hate manufacturers not having serviceable fuel filters, but I understand they're doing it for emissions. It's what it is. It's the world we live in. And then once you have that, you have the car and you've gone through and you've probably spent, unless you have a good amount of money on hand to just throw at the wall, you've probably nickel and dimed this thing through a stage 0 over the course of, let's say, 2 to 3 months, maybe a little longer, and that's no problem. There's no shame in it or anything like that. Maybe a little shorter, but I think the average is somewhere in that 2 to 4 month spectrum. And you now have a good driving, running stage 0. And now you're ready to go purchase that hot air intake and do those performance exhaust modifications. No, still don't. The best number one first mod out of the gate, once your stage 0 is complete, and some people may consider this part of stage 0 as you're maintaining things and bringing the vehicle up to spec. Quality tires. And I don't mean go out and buy an aftermarket set of rims or wheels, and change the specs or anything like that. I mean, take your vehicle, find a good quality set of tires, and put them on. I personally, because I drive my vehicles year round, I prefer a quality set of all seasons. It's just my preference. The Volvo, I've got some BFG, I don't even remember off the top of my head, but BFG Performance all-season tires, because I like driving my cars. I don't care, I don't take it out in extreme bad weather, but I like driving my cars. You should as well. That's also the key to a stage 0. You got it brought up mechanically sound, it runs good, stops perfect, suspension doesn't make a million different clunks, and you have a good set of all-season tires so you can take it out. If you get caught in the rain or the sleet or the snow or something like that, you can be reasonably safe and not just on some summer tires where you're going to look like Bambi on ice. Drive the rubber off the wheels. And that doesn't mean go out and do burnout competitions and donuts. Doing some burnouts is probably part of it. Miles. Put hours in the seat, miles on the tire. burn the tires into the ground by driving. Why is this so important as part of stage 0? Before you have modified anything at all, you learn the car, you learn the vehicle, you learn how it stops at varying speeds. You learn whether or not it has an issue with overheating in slow traffic or whenever. You learn when, just how things are going to work. Like the Volvo. Volvo's got a G80 limited slip in the back. And it's fine, it gets the job done. But G80s aren't as predictable as, like, let's say Dana PowerTrack or, some of the other limited slips that are out there. And every now and then that G80 goes, yeah, I know you're in the middle of doing something right now, but I've decided you don't need traction at both wheels anymore. And because it's a centrifugal weight system in it, they sometimes go, oh, okay, well, we'll just kick out of there. Well, if you don't put the hours into the car to drive it, you could be in a really questionable situation when that decides to go, okay, I don't need to do this anymore. And that's not a good place to be. You can never anticipate and prepare for accidents. That's why they're called accidents. And stupid zero tolerance policies for accidents are just stupid. But do the best you can. Get the vehicle to be in a running mechanically sound condition. Get good quality tires on it and drive it. Spend 6 months, spend a year just driving it. High speed, low speed, turns, straight lines. Take it to a couple of random track days. Throw it around a bit. You want to do this to be familiar with the car, to know the vehicle, to understand. Do you have a vehicle that's fairly well balanced and just underpowered? So you might be able to do a little bit different things than something that is a whole lot of power and is a big unbalanced lumbering boat. The two characteristics of driving those, they do not handle the same way. They do not operate the same way. Pickup trucks, very popular. 2-wheel drive pickup trucks. They don't weigh shit in the back end. Whoop! Good. Get away from you. They get swirly in the back, quick, fast, and in a hurry. You may find that, like, traditional performance modifications are not the direction you want to go first. You may want to go, after driving this vehicle for a while, you may decide that, okay, well, my problem isn't so much get up and go. It gets up and goes relatively fine. Yeah, it could be better, but gets up and goes relatively fine. My problem is that it seems to take a little longer than I want in stopping. Okay, well, are there addresses? Are there things to fix and improve the brakes? Maybe it's same model car, but a better options package or a performance options package, or cross-platforming where the slightly larger version of the vehicle had a little bit bigger brakes and you can just swap from one to the other. Or it could just be even an age thing. Hey, the manufacturer, when they built this line of cars, they had these, they're adequate, they do the job, but they didn't have a ton of money to sink into R&D when they redesigned things. But 5-10 years later, they redesigned stuff and the R&D was a little better, and you can mix and match. But stage 0 has to come first. It has to be important. You need to drive the tires off of it. Then you can figure out what the car needs. If you just jump in, like I used to autocross with a guy, it was way back in the late 90s. And he had a Cavalier. And it's autocross, so mostly everybody had whatever random thing that they wanted to drive. This guy had a little 2-door Cavalier, 5-speed manual. I don't even know if it was Z24. And every month he would come with something else done to the car. And every month he would bitch and moan about he was unhappy about his track times. But when you do things like that, you essentially have a new car every time you're going and trying to do something with it. It's the same thing when you skip over taking away the importance of a stage 0 and driving it for a while as stage 0. You know, if you just fix one thing, you know, let's say you get one that runs rough, so you put tune up, fixes running rough. You don't look at anything else on it. Well, it stopped when I brought it home. Power steering's not making any funny noises. It doesn't feel overly heavy. I don't need to worry about it. And you go down to the parts store and you pick up something that's actually going to increase horsepower and bolt it on, and you get out and you have fun. It's always euphoric. You know, you get that dopamine hit. But you haven't addressed anything else, and you've gone and made a very important modification. You got no idea where to go after that. Sure, you can say you do, you can claim it, but you realistically have absolutely nowhere to go, and you might be putting band-aids on stuff that don't need to be band-aid. So hopefully this wasn't too terrible of a rambling rant, but I think stage 0 really needs to be held up and looked at and accepted as a very important step in getting your project car going and having it be the kind of project that you want it to be, and having it fit and being able to provide you with the most fun and just enjoyment that you can get out of your project in general. You know, too many people shoot for the moon and miss, and it blows out their spirit. It destroys their enthusiasm for the culture and for the hobby, and that's not where any of us need to be. You know, and we especially don't need to be those kind of people that when someone does ask and they are new, oh, noob, God. And I know how hard it is. You hear the same question for the last 40 years, and you just want to choke the next person that asks the same thing. You know, join the off-road community. Hey, what's the biggest size tire I can fit? You just want to reach through and choke them to death. But you put up with it, and instead of being snarky or rude or belittling when you answer them, provide them reinforcement. You know, answer their question, provide them that reinforcement of, hey, here's your answer. But if you're that new to this, you probably want to start with doing this first. You know, whether that's inviting them, like in 4-wheel drive. The only way you're going to get better handling a vehicle off-road is to go off-roading. You know, so invite the people out with you if you're a local community and have trail runs. If you are, you know, on a racetrack or whatever, at whatever level, you know, autocross, road course, straight line drag racing, you know, invite them out. Hey, you want to come out? There's a group of us. You want to come out next Saturday? They're doing a test and tune. They're doing an open fun day, track day. Whatever it is, you know, and be encouraging and help them and encourage them to not only enjoy it, but to be like, hey man, maybe throttle that back a little bit and let's focus on this over here. I can see you're a little overly bouncy in this corner. Maybe your struts or your shocks are going bad. Maybe your springs, you know, 200, 300,000 miles on it, and you know, the boing in the spring ain't going boing anymore. It's very important. And it will make people better drivers, and it will make people better understanding of their car and how it functions. And so get out there, get your next project, and go make it as bone stock as humanly possible so that you can drive the tires off of it and figure out what you want to do next. So have fun, everybody.